and welcome to King James Bible University. So this Sunday, then as stated last week, then we're going to pick up with Sirach 1 and 1 and finish what we didn't get to do. So in our last lesson, then we talked about the definitions in Sirach 1 and 1. So then we covered wisdom and what it means. That it's God in a mystery and to get understanding. So it's dependent on how you're using it. Then we talked about the mystery, what that is, and that's a secret. And then those are the things that are unrevealed openly, that are hidden from the eyes. And that gave an applicational example in that last lesson. And we covered knowledge, which that is your familiarity in when you have the meanings and translations of the parables. So then it's things from your learning that have been manifested and revealed openly to you. So it is known information, and that's what knowledge is. And in Sirach 1 and 1, then we covered what the topic was. Then which topic, then that is the focus of the discussion. So now then we're going to be looking at the source, and right here on this side, then I'll define what the source is. So we'll right here, source. And that's the definition of the source. So it's that from which something proceeds. So right here in Sirach 1 and 1, it's telling us that all wisdom, which that is the topic, it comes from the Lord. Then that's where it comes from. So before then we dive deep, then I'm going to start off and just show some precepts that it's going to qualify this source right here, that this wisdom, that it comes from the Lord. So we'll get one of our Bibles up and going, and we'll hit Sirach 11 and 15. So this is our first precept for this lesson. So we have Sirach chapter 11 and verse 15. So wisdom, so right there, then God in a mystery, then those mysteries, those things that are unrevealed openly. So knowledge, the familiarity, the meanings and translations of these parables, and understanding of the law are of the Lord. So love and the ways of good works are from Him. So it's telling you right there, that's the source of these things. Another precept that we'll look at is we'll hit Wisdom of Solomon, and we'll hit chapter 7, and we'll look at verse 16. So we have Wisdom of Solomon 7 and 16. For in His hand are both we and our words. So that's semicolon, the end of that thought. And here's another one. So all wisdom also and knowledge of workmanship. So it's in His hand. So it's letting you know where this wisdom, where it's coming from. So right here, then I'm gonna put those examples there right here on the side, and then afterwards, and we'll dive right into this lesson. Okay, so now that then we have the source, then it's defined. Now we'll pick back up our Bible, and next precept that we'll visit is we'll go to the book of James, and we'll go to chapter 1, and we will look at verse 17. So this is James 1 and 17. So every good gift and every perfect gift, so then in its fullness, then without any sort of blemish, any sort of problems, it's perfect. So every perfect gift is from above, which we know that there's a firmament, then it's separating the waters that are from above from the waters that are below. But it's telling us, so every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. So we've got that comma there, so we're getting ready to get more clarification on what was just said right here. And cometh down from the Father of lights, so the progenitor of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning, because then it's perfect. So then it's telling us right here, then where these good and perfect gifts it's coming from, then it's coming from him and not from any other source. So right here, then one thing I want to expound on some more is this from above and this coming down. So leaving here, then we'll go to the book of John and we will look at chapter 3 and we'll go to verse 13. So, and no man has ascended up into heaven, so the separations, but he that came down from heaven, the Son of Man, which is in heaven, so the servant of man, then that Spirit of God that came down. And we'll also go to Proverbs. We'll go to Proverbs and we'll look at chapter 30 and verse 4. So, who has ascended up into the heavens, so the separations, which we had just saw it in John chapter 3 and 13. Ain't no flesh, ain't no man has went up there, or descended. So who has gathered the wind, so the Spirit in his fists? And we'll stop right there, right at the question mark. None. Flesh and blood, then it can't inherit the kingdom of God. So then we know that what's went up, that ascended, and also what descended, then this is a spirit. So then this wisdom that's coming from the Lord, then it's from above. And this is where then we ought to seek our wisdom from. And the reason why then I'm saying all of this is because we're getting ready to look at something which then this will be a pivot point and also a plumb line in this lesson when we visit Sirach, and we'll look at chapter 20 and verse 10. And this is why then we have to seek those perfect gifts and the wisdom that's from above and not below. As this is a plumb line verse right here. So there is a gift that shall not profit thee, so it won't be for your gain. And we have that semicolon there, so then this is one separate thought. We're getting ready to get another one that's tied to this thought, but it's completely separate. And that's what that semicolon is for. And there is a gift whose recompense is double. So then we have these two gifts. Then one is going to have a double recompense, and then this other one right here, then it won't be for your gain. Then there's no or sort of a profit for it whatsoever. And moving from here, then we'll look at this gift right here, the one that's not going to profit you. So what we'll do is now we'll hit James. Actually, just to make this even easier, then what I'll do is I'll just fire up the other Bible as well. So now then we got two, and this other one, then we'll hit James, and we'll go to chapter 3 and verse 15. So this wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. So then the reason why we're going here is when it's talking about there is a gift that should not profit thee, then it's talking about flesh. So then the riches of flesh and also then the knowledge of flesh, then it's not going to profit you, because that wisdom, it's not from above. So it's telling you this wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. Which, just to backtrack, I should have ran another precept before coming here. We'll go to John and we'll look at chapter 6 and we'll go to verse 63. So we have John 6 and 63. So it is the spirit that quickeneth. So it's the end of that thought. The flesh profit nothing. So it's letting you know right there, then that flesh, then it's not going to profit you. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. So then you'll get wisdom from the words that are the Spirit of God that is speaking. Because what man is going to tell you, because man, then he's never been from above, then we are earthly, then we came from the earth and we're going to return back to it. Therefore, then our wisdom, it's not from above. So this wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish. So then we have to be mindful of the things that we seek after, then where our fear and our desire is toward, and we also have to be mindful of who we're learning from. So from here, and I'll qualify that statement about, being mindful of what we're seeking when we hit Hebrews, and we'll go to chapter 12 and we'll look at 16 and 17. So lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel, so one portion of meat, sold his birthright. So then he cast it off for something else that doesn't profit. And we can easily get caught up in this mistake than if we do the same thing, where we are casting off the things that are from above for the things that don't profit. For ye know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, so the giving of wisdom and understanding, he was rejected. For he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. So then we have to just watch what we're seeking after and just be mindful of what we're learning. Because the flesh, then it profits nothing. So these enticing words that you would hear from these vain speakers, from these pastors and from these prosperity teachers, then those itching, enticing doctrines that make you feel good, then it won't profit you. So we'll leave here and now we'll hit Colossians and we'll go to chapter 2 and verse 8. So Colossians 2 and verse 8. So beware lest any man, so there's that flesh, spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit. So after the tradition of men and after the rudiments of the world and not after Christ. Which then I'm going to let that one sit for a sec. And before then we move forward, then this philosophy, what you got to take this down, just for then a definition. And if people want the definition of that, then that it's man's own personal belief and understanding. So this is not what you want to be spoiled after. So that man's then their own personal understanding in their belief in vain deceit. So leaving here, the next precept that we'll hit is we'll go to 2 Peter. So we'll hit 2 Peter and we'll go to chapter 2 and we'll look at verses 1 through 3. So, but there were false prophets, so these false mouthpieces, which then we see them today, also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies. And they're doing it for a particular purpose, and they're doing it for the gain and for filthy lucre, even denying the Lord that brought them, and bringing upon themselves swift destruction. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. So that's what they're going to be doing, these false teachers. And through covetousness shall they with vain words, so there's those enticing words right here that won't profit you, which they're speaking all of these vain, puffed up, enticing words, because then these false teachers, and they have that covetousness, then they want lucre, they want to enrich themselves, and they're doing it off of your hard-earned money. And through covetousness shall they with vain words make merchandise of you, whose judgment not of a long time lingereth, now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. Because in the things that they're doing, then they will pay for it. Then it is an ungodly thing, and when you're defrauding your neighbor then of his wages, of his hire, then you're defrauding and perverting the understanding of your neighbor and your brother. Then there is a recompense and a judgment for that. And a lot of these false teachers, some of them, they already know that, and they're so puffed up and emboldened in their own pride that they're still holding on to these false teaching and these heresies that they've devised themselves, because they care more about this world than the one to come. But leaving here, looking at how these enticing words and this knowledge of flesh, and it doesn't profit us. Another thing that we'll look at is we'll also hit Isaiah chapter 30 and verse 10 and 11. So leaving 2 Peter, and we're going to Isaiah, and we'll look at chapter 30 and verse 10 and 11. And actually, then we'll extend up to verse 9. But this is a rebellious people, so lying children, and children that would not hear the law of the Lord, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things. So you see it right there. Speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceit. So then you want to hear that prosperity message, then those enticing, itchy-eared sorts of doctrines that make you feel good, that tickles your ear. So get you out of the way and turn aside out of the path, cause the Holy One of Israel to cease from before us. So this is what then we can end up trusting to, then if we're going after the things that don't profit us. Then this is why then it doesn't profit. Which we'll leave here, and we'll going to expand more on those smooth things that we saw right here in verse 10. So these smooth things, and where that comes from. So we'll now hit Proverbs, and we'll look at chapter 5, and we'll go to verse 1 through 4. So my son, attend unto my wisdom, and bow thine ear to mine understanding, that thou mayest regard discretion, so you'll have that, and that thy lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of a strange woman, so then this strange spirit that we didn't know of old, drop as a honeycomb, and her mouth is smoother than oil. So those smooth speaking preachers and teachers and Christian pastors out there, then that's where all of this comes from. But her end is bitter as wormwood and sharp, so that sharp then it means corrupt as a two-edged sword, then it's a two-tongued, two-way doctrine. So her feet, so her path go down to death, and her steps take hold on hell. So So that's what you're taking hold of if you're holding to a gift that doesn't profit you, because in that wisdom, then it doesn't ascend from above, then it's earthly. So, just now leaving the knowledge of the flesh, then we'll look at this other part. So the riches of the flesh and how it doesn't profit us. So now we'll look at 1 John, and we'll go to chapter 2 in verse 15 through 17. So 1 John chapter 2 in verse 15 through 17. So promise not the world, neither the things that are in the world. So if any man promise the world, the promise of the Father is not in him, which, we'll show this when we go to James and show you how then it pits you at variance with God when you're holding on to the things of the world. So now we're in James chapter 4 and verse 4 on this other side. So you adulterers and adulteresses, so know ye not that the friendship, so the companionship of the world is enmity with God. So whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. So hidden here, and this is why, then when you're a companion of the world, this is why it makes you an enemy with God. So right here at verse 16, for all that is in the world, so the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes, so the understanding and all of the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. So leaving here, then I'll show you how the scriptures, it points out that it pits you at variance. So now we'll look at Galatians, and we'll go to chapter 5 and verse 17. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit it's against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that you cannot do the things that you would, which is, then you should be mortifying your flesh, not promising this life, this fleshly life at all. So then you're laying this life down so that you can inherit the one to come, and that you won't be turning to the left or to the right, but following that spirit. So let me pull back up that precept that we was working with in Sirach. So we'll go to chapter 20, going back there in verse 10. This is why then that flesh then it doesn't profit. So, another precept that we'll look at is we'll go to Mark, and we'll go to chapter 8, and we will look at verse 36. So, for what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world? So then you're gaining all of these riches, then you're enjoying all of the flowers of the field, and you're getting caught up with any sort of doctrine then that's pleasant to your eyes and to your understanding, and then you end up losing your own soul. Then that's what should matter the most to you is your own soul, where your eternity is going to be, and not for the things that are just right here that are temporary. Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So verse 37. So whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed when he cometh in the glory of his fathers with the holy angels, so the messengers. And what it caused you to end up being ashamed of him is just once again what we had seen in 1 John. So then you're preferring and choosing the things of this world over him because they're contrary from one to the other. So that right there, those are the precepts that I was going to show for this first part leading up to the semicolon of why this gift right here. So flesh, so the knowledge of the flesh and all of the lust and pride of the flesh, and why it doesn't profit you. Now, then we'll look at this other side, and there's a gift whose recompense is double. So, leaving here, what we'll do is now we'll go to 1 Corinthians, and we'll look at chapter 12, and we'll first look at verse 1. So now concerning spiritual gifts, so the ones that are not of the flesh, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. So we'll go now to verse 7, and we'll extend all the way down to 11. But the manifestation, so the revelation of the Spirit, is given to every man to profit withal. So this is the one that's going to profit you right here, is the manifestation of the Spirit. So it's not this right here, it's this flesh that we're looking at in Sirach 20 and 10. So once again, but the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. For to one is given by the Spirit. So you're going to have the word of wisdom, which before we go forth, what we'll do is just to make this easier for me, we'll go to 1 Corinthians, and we'll just put it on this side. So 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 7 through 11 off it, and we'll use it and put it on the right side. So, but the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom. And that's the end of that thought right there. So, we'll exit. Then, excuse me. Here we are. So, then we got it on the right side, and we're pitting it right here so we can go right back to Sirach 1 and 1. So it's telling us right here very clearly in verse 8, for to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom. So it's telling you right there, then that's the source. Because it tells us right in Sirach 1 and 1, all wisdom, then it's coming from the Lord. So Paul, then he's clarifying it, and he's validating that statement right there. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom. So to another, the word of knowledge by the same Spirit. To another, faith by the same Spirit. So all of these gifts, and it's telling you where it's coming from. It's coming from the Lord. To another, the gifts of healing by the same Spirit. So to another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, discerning of spirits. To another, diverse kinds of tongues. And to another, the interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh that one and self same Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. So just right here with verses 7 all the way down to 11, then we see exactly that all of these spiritual gifts, these is given to us to profit. And it's telling us right here when we read down from 8 to 11 that it's coming from this one source from above, from the Creator. And before we move further, then I'm going to pause for a second and let that sit in. And while then I'm letting that sit in, and I'll be typing in also then these precepts that we just covered so far. We went to James. All right, so now then we have our precepts here from the source. And then we see that just through precepts that then these good gifts, then there's one that's not going to profit us, and also then a gift whose recompense then it's doubled. And we saw that in Sirach 20 and 10, and we also saw in James 1 and 17 that every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. But while I was typing everything down, there was something else that hit me, which I'm gonna pull up my Bible combo and show it to you guys before then I move on. So then we'll go right back to Sirach 20 and 10, where it's saying there is a gift that shall not profit thee. So, and we covered that flesh profits nothing. But just on this other side, where it's saying there's a gift whose recompense is double, then I want to give another precept for that side. Then we'll hit Sirach and we'll look at chapter 26, and we will look at verse 1 through 3. So, blessed, so wisdom is given to the man that has a virtuous wife. So this is talking about a spirit and not flesh. For the number of his days shall be double than if you have that spirit, because in that spirit, then she's going to feed you with the water of knowledge and with the bread of understanding. So then you'll be given understanding, and if you have that virtuous wife, then it is going to be with you in a way. A virtuous woman rejoiceth her husband, and he shall fulfill the years of his life in peace. So then he's going to be full of age. A good wife is a good portion, which shall be given in the portion of them that desire the Lord. So you see that this one right here is going to profit you. So that was something that I just had hit me while I was typing in these precepts. So then I'm going to add that one in here as well. So we got to also put Sirach 26 and 1 through 3. So now that we have those precepts here, before we get to the basis, then there's a couple of extras that I want to throw in here. So then I'm going to call this a section, just extras, because there's some things that I now want to show before then we get to the basis of the last part of Sirach 1 and 1. So we'll now hit Jeremiah, and we're going to go to chapter 18, and we'll look at verse 13, because I have to show us then what we did. So then we'll look at Jeremiah, and we'll go to chapter 18 and verse 13, and we'll actually extend down to 16. So therefore, thus saith the Lord, ask ye now among the heathen, so who has heard such things? So the Virgin of Israel has done a very horrible thing. So will a man leave the snow of Lebanon, which cometh from the rock of the field? Which that snow, then that's that pureness and whiteness, and it's Lebanon, and it means to be white. Then this is what we did. Then we left the snow of Lebanon, which cometh from the rock of the field. Or shall the cold flowing waters that come from another place be forsaken? And this is all, then it's spiritual talk, but when this other question is being asked to us, then this is something that we did. Then we forsook wisdom, which will pull this other Bible up, and we'll look at this when it's saying the cold waters that's flowing from another place, because that's talking about wisdom. So we have Proverbs 31, and we'll look at 14. So we have Proverbs 31 and 14. So she is like, so it's being compared to the merchants' ships. So these ships that are bringing all of this cargo and freight. She bringeth her food from afar, then it's from above. In the same way, where we look at this comparison with the merchant ships that are bringing cargo and goods way from another country, then this is wisdom that's being compared, that her food, so these holy things that she's brought to feed us, then it's coming from another place, and we've forsaken it. So will a man leave the snow of Lebanon, which cometh from the rock of the field? So we're being asked this question, which when we park over here in Deuteronomy, because this rock of the field, then it's makes it very clear then who this rock is. So we have Deuteronomy and we have 32:4. So he is the rock. So his work is perfect. For all his ways are judgment. So a God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he. Then he's the rock. So will a man leave the snow to the whiteness of Lebanon and the pureness which cometh from the rock of the field? Or shall the cold flowing waters that come from another place be forsaken? Because my people have forgotten me, because this is what we did. They have burnt incense to vanity, and they have caused them to stumble in their ways from the ancient paths, to walk in paths in a way not cast up, to make their land desolate and a perpetual hissing. So everyone that passes thereby shall be astonished and wag his head. So I will scatter them as with an east wind, so with that wind of desolation before the enemy, and I will show them the back and not the face in the day of their calamity. So then he's going to hide his face from us, and when he's evil things, his recompense comes our way because of what we did. So, to expound on this, because then we have to talk about this, then we will look at Sirach 19 and 22, and we'll see what we forsook him for. So now we'll hit Sirach, and we'll go to chapter 19, and we'll look at verse 22 and 23. And this is what we did. So the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom. So neither at any time the counsel of sinners prudence. So there is a wickedness, and the same is an abomination. So it's most hated. And we have that semicolon there. So that's the end of that thought. Then it's telling you that the knowledge of wickedness, so this knowledge that's from below, then it's not wisdom. But we forsook him for these things, and we've forgotten his ways, and now then we have formed up our own paths. But just to go back and revisit, then we'll hit James, and we'll go back to chapter 3 and verse 15. Because the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom. So this wisdom descendeth not from above. So the source, and it's not the creator, but it's earthly, sensual, and devilish. And we've corrupted ourselves with this wisdom right here. So then we'll hit Isaiah, and we'll go to chapter 47, and we'll look at verse 10. So, for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. So thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it has perverted thee. So you see what it did to us. And thou hast said in thine heart, so I am, and none else beside me. Then this is what happened. And this is why then we have the enmity right now. Is because then we have trusted in our own wickedness instead of the wisdom that's coming from above. So now we'll hit Jeremiah. And we'll go to chapter 2, and we will look at verse 11 through 14. So, has a nation changed their gods? which are yet no gods, which we can answer that questions ourselves. And Christians, then they still have white Jesus, and all of the other nations, and they still have their gods. So they didn't change theirs. But, he's getting ready to break us off right here. But my people have changed their God for that which do not profit, which then we have to pull it back up. So we got to go right back to Sirach 20 and 10. That gift right there that does not profit. So, but my people have changed their glory for that which do not profit. So be astonished, O heavens, or separations at this, and be horribly afraid, and be ye very desolate, saith the Lord. For my people have committed two evils, so they have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters. So then he's telling us right there, once again, that's where this livings of waters is coming from. Then he's the fountain. And hewed them out cisterns, so broken cisterns that can hold no water. So is Israel a servant? Is he a horn-born slave? So why is he spoiled? Which that'll tie back into what we've seen in Colossians. Then let no man spoil us through the vain deceit and the philosophy of man. And this is how then we ended up getting ourselves spoiled. So we'll pull it back up. So we let flesh get us, then flesh get us. So right here in verse 8, remember, so beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy. So then their own personal beliefs and understanding in vain deceit. So after the tradition of men and after the rudiments of the world and not after Christ. So this is why then we are spoiled, and that's why this question is being asked right here in Jeremiah 2 and 14. So why is he spoiled? And he's going to give us the answer right here in 15, but it'll be in a spiritual way. So the young lions roared up against him and yelled, and they made his land waste. So his cities are burnt without inhabitants. So then you have all of these other vineyards, all of these pastors that have destroyed the Most High's vineyard. And this is why then we're in this situation today, which we'll expound some more upon this. And we'll still in the same book of Jeremiah. Then we'll go to chapter 12 and verse 9 and 10. So mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. So the birds round about are against her. So there it is. So come you and assemble all the beasts of the field and come to devour. So many pastors have destroyed my vineyard, and they have trodden my portion under desires, so under their desires, and they have made my pleasant portion a desolate wilderness. So they have made it desolate, and being desolate, it mourneth unto me. So the whole land is made desolate, because no man layeth it to heart. So then we became the speckled bird, and that speckled, what that means, and that's spotted. Then this is how we are, because then we've been trodden out by all of these pastors that have destroyed us in due time, over time. And we'll go to Deuteronomy, we'll see this spot, and it has nothing to do with the Most High being spotted. So we'll look at Deuteronomy, and we'll go to chapter 32, and here it is in verse 5. So they have corrupted themselves. Their spot is not the spot of his children. So they are a perverse and crooked generation, which, we're revisiting precepts that we've seen earlier. Then we corrupted in ourselves by our own knowledge. So you remember this right here? So for thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, so none seeth me. So thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it has perverted thee. Then this is how then we ended up being, when we go back over to Jeremiah 12, when he's telling us right here that we are as the speckled bird. This is why. Then that's why we have those spots, is because then we've trusted in our own wickedness. Then all of these pastors that we have taken unto ourselves, and they've spoiled us with their own personal interpretations and their philosophies, then that has removed us out of the way. Then this is the problem that he has with us, because then we're not seeking him. These spots right here in Deuteronomy 32:5, then it's telling us like it's not the spot of his children. We'll expound on this, and we'll hit Wisdom of Solomon, and we'll go to chapter 7, and we'll look at verse 23. Actually, it's 26, so it's Wisdom of Solomon 7:26. For she is the brightness of the everlasting light, so the unspotted mirror of the power of God, in the image or the likeness of his goodness. So then this wisdom, it's unspotted. Then our wisdom and our knowledge, which we had seen in Isaiah 47:10, then it corrupted us. So we're, as Jeremiah then it's saying, and this is why then we are looked at now as the spotted bird. So then we wanted to have our own identity, which then I'll show you how this got us in trouble, wanting to have our own identity. So we have Romans 1, and we'll look at verse 23. And change the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made, so a likeness made to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. Then this is what we did by wanting to have in our own identity. So, picking up on this, then we'll also go to Isaiah, and we'll look at chapter 5, and we'll look at verses 1 through 7. And then on this side, then we'll put Jeremiah, and we'll go to chapter 12, and on this side, then we'll run verse 8 on this side. So picking it up with Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 1 through 7. So now will I sing. So it's going to sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching, so concerning his vineyard. So my well-beloved has a vineyard in a very fruitful hill, and he fenced it and gathered out all the stones thereof and planted it with the choicest vine. Which I'll show something. So we'll see exactly what it's talking about when it's saying like he's gathered out all of the stones and planted it with the choicest vine. So then we'll go to Baruch, and we'll hit chapter 3, and we'll look at verse 36. So he has found out all the way of knowledge, and has given it unto Jacob his servant, and to Israel his beloved. And then we'll go to Sirach, and we'll go to chapter 17, and we'll look at verse 11. So besides this, he gave them knowledge and the law of life for an heritage. So then he gave us all of these things. So, and he fenced it and gathered out the stones thereof and planted it with the choicest vine and built a tower in the midst of it, and also made a winepress therein, and he looked that it should bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes. So this is the problem. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, so judge, I pray you, between me and my vineyard. So what could have been done more to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Wherefore, when I looked that it should bring forth grapes, which he gave us everything that we needed, brought it forth wild grapes. And now go to, and I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. So I will take away the hedge thereof, so that protection, and it shall be eaten up, and break down the wall thereof, and it shall be trodden down. And I will lay it waste, and it shall not be pruned nor digged, so it's not going to be kept. But there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. So then it's being revealed. Then we're this vineyard in this parable. And the men of Judah his pleasant plant. So he looked for judgment, but behold, oppression. So he wanted those grapes. So that's the fruit of these doctrines and teachings. Then righteousness. But behold, oppression. For righteousness, but behold, a cry. Which then we're going to get on that cry. Then I had it there earlier, then I took it down. So we'll go back to Jeremiah. And we'll go right back to 12. And we will look at verse 8. So mine heritage is unto me as a lion in the forest. So it crieth out against me. So in our spirit and our voice, and it's against him now. And it's because of we're laying hold to something else, then that's not from him. Therefore have I hated it. So in verse 7, so I have forsaken my house, and I have left mine heritage. I have given the dearly beloved of my soul into the hands of her enemies. And this is why then we're in captivity today of the mind. You know, we're being spoiled through feigned philosophies and deceits. And this is also why we're today physically in the land of our captivity. Then we're scattered all over the four corners of the earth. It's because of what we did. And, you know, that was a serious issue. So let's pick up some more of the story. And we'll go to Jeremiah, and we'll go to chapter 5 and verse 7 through 10. So how shall I pardon thee for this? So how shall we be excused because of from what we did? So thy children have forsaken me, and sworn by them that are no gods. When I had fed them to the full, then they committed adultery and assembled themselves by troops in the harlots' houses. So they were as fed horses. So their own doctrine, own interpretation in the morning. So everyone neighed after his neighbor's wife. So another spirit except besides his. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord? And shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? So go you up upon her walls and destroy, so that protection is going to be taken away, but make not a full end. So take away her battlements, for they are not the Lord's. For the house of Israel and the house of Judah have dealt very treacherously against me, saith the Lord. And this is what we did. So I just wanted to show those things because it ties into this source, that this wisdom, and it's coming from above, but we sought out something else, and this is answering, why we're having the problems that we're having. So we'll put these extras in here, and we went to Sirach 19 and 22 and 23. Then we went to James 3 and 15. We went to Isaiah 47 and 10. We talked over in Jeremiah 2, 11 through 14. Then we talked about the identity, Romans 1 and 23. A pit right here. We talked about that word speckled. Play the way that it's. There we go. So I can't spell. So spotted, and we'll Deuteronomy 32 and 5. Then we Isaiah 47, 10. Then we'll put like an arrow here because we have a contrast. Because wisdom, it's unspotted. So then we talked about that. Then we got some more extras, so I'll just put this line right here. Then we went over to Isaiah 5 and 1 through 9. Then we went over to Jeremiah 12 and 8. Well, it was 1 and 7, not 9. But the Jeremiah 12 and 8. Then we went to Jeremiah 5, 7 through 10. So now then we have the basis. And the basis, and that is that which something else is established. So we'll hit that here. Which then we'll run a precept, or we'll run a few precepts to qualify this before we start running through the lesson. This precept that we'll look at is we'll go to Baruch. We'll go to chapter 3 and verse 14. So learn where is wisdom, and where is strength, and where is understanding, that thou mayest know also where is length of days in life, and where is the light of the eyes in peace. So then that's a told right there that we need to learn where it is, which we'll take a look at that, and we'll head on over to Psalms. Then we'll go to chapter 93. So, the Spirit of God reigneth, and he is clothed with majesty. So the Lord, Spirit of God, is clothed with strength, wherewith he has girded himself. So then that's where then we'll find in our length of days and our strength and our wisdom. So the world also is established that it cannot be moved. So thy throne is established of old, and thou art from everlasting. So then our answer right there, then this is who we have to seek, because this wisdom, then it's with him. And, just touching on this world part, then he gave us another part right here in the end of 93:1. So the world, as we know it today, then it's established by his word, that it's not going to be moved. And also spiritually, us, that we won't be moved. We're holding on to the things that he's saying. So, we'll look at that first. Then we have Psalms 24:2. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. And we'll now go to Sirach, and we'll hit chapter 15, and we will look at verse 4. So he shall be stayed upon her. So that's how we'll be established, and shall not be moved, and shall rely upon her, and shall not be confounded. Which, now I'll get both Bibles going, because I wanted to show something over here in Matthew 7:24 and 25. Oh, I have to go back over there. So therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man. So he's going to be compared unto this wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them shall be likened everyone that hears these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. And we'll also hit Matthew, and we'll go to chapter 16, and we'll look at verse 18. And I say also unto thee, so that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So then that's just what we had seen over in Sirach 15:4 and Matthew 7:24 and 25. Then we're going to be founded and stayed on her, that we won't be moved. So then we'll pit the precepts that we had just looked at. And we went to Baruch 3:14. And we went over to Psalms 93:1, Psalms 24:2. We went to Sirach 15:4. Then we went over to Matthew 7:24, 25, and then we went to Matthew 16:18. So then we see that it's established with him forever, in this wisdom, and it's not with man. So then we'll pull up this Bible, and we'll hit to our last couple of precepts before then we close out this lesson. So we'll hit Wisdom of Solomon, and we'll go over to chapter 9, in verse 17 and 8. And thy counsel, so who has known, except thou give wisdom, because he's the one that's given it, and send thy Holy Spirit from above. For so the ways of them which live on the earth were reformed, and men were taught the things that are pleasing unto thee, and were saved through wisdom. So that's how we'll be stayed, to where we won't be moved and confounded with floods and with other winds of doctrines and vain deceits of men. Then that's how we'll be established ourselves. But this wisdom, then it's telling us right here, then he's the one that's given it, Christ. And we'll see another precept just in the same chapter in verse 9. So it's telling you it's with him. And wisdom was with thee. So once again in Sirach 1 and 1, so all wisdom cometh from the Lord, and is with him forever. And we're seeing this right here in Wisdom of Solomon 9 and 8. So in wisdom was with thee, which knoweth thy works, and was present when thou madest the world, and knew what was acceptable in thy sight, and right in thy commandments. So then we see what's going on right here in Wisdom of Solomon 9 and 8. Or 9 and 9. So this is not 9 and 8. This is Wisdom of Solomon 9 and 9. And we'll also draw from James. And we'll go to chapter 1. And we will look at verse 5 through 8. So if any of you lack wisdom, so let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and abradeth not, and it shall be given him. So be better if I just pull up the other Bible too, because we'll park right over in John, and we'll go to chapter 14 and verse 13 and 14. And whatsoever you shall ask in my way, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. And if you shall ask anything in my way, I will do it. So then if you're asking for this wisdom, then we'll pick back up over here into James. So, but let him ask in faith, so nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, so driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think he shall receive anything of the Lord. So a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So then you have to not be holding on to something else where you're riding a fence, so being lukewarm. And we'll head over to Wisdom of Solomon, because it's showing us that this gift of wisdom in his spirit, and it's coming from him. And it's with him, and it's his gift. So we have Wisdom of Solomon in 8, and we will look at verse 21. So nevertheless, when I perceived that I could not otherwise obtain her, except God gave her me, and that was a point of wisdom also to know whose gift she was, I prayed, so you made a petition unto the Lord, and besought him, and with my whole heart. So this is why, you're not double-minded. I said, so now we have Wisdom of Solomon chapter 9 and verse 1 through 5. So, O God of my fathers, and Lord of mercy, who has made all things with thy word, and ordained man through thy wisdom, that he should have dominion over the creatures which thou hast made, and ordered the world according to equity and righteousness, and executed judgment with an upright heart. So give me wisdom that sitteth by thy throne, and reject me not from among thy children. For I, thy servant and son of thine handmaid, am a feeble person, and of a short time, and too young for the understanding of judgment and laws. So Even Solomon, then he had to petition to the Creator to give wisdom. Then it comes from him, then it's his. So then we'll write in these precepts right here, and then we'll end up closing out this lesson. So then we'll go and find Wisdom of Solomon. We'll go to 9, 17, and 18, and then we went to 9, and we went over to James. And we went to chapter 1 and verse 5 through 8. We went to John chapter 14, verse 13 and 14. We went to Solomon 8 and 31. Then we hit 9, 1 through 5. So then those are going to be the precepts for Sirach 1 and 1. If you have any sort of questions, comments, or concerns, just leave them in the comments. And until next time.
Represent Texas, represent Texas, represent Texas, represent Texas, represent Texas, represent Texas, coming straight about that H-time. Represent Texas, 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 coming straight about that H-time. Represent